The cuffs bit into Zora Williams' wrists as Officer Callahan smirked. Suspicious character, probably dealing drugs. Cameras recorded the 16-year-old black girl surrounded by police in downtown Chicago. Callahan dumped her bag, violating her rights. Suddenly he froze, holding a strange device and specialized ID. CIA Operation Shadow, Zora stated calmly. Captain Martinez confirmed her status as the crowd gasped. Callahan's face drained of color. As Martinez removed her cuffs, Zora whispered, "I found them." The terrorist cell had been located, but at what cost? Was blowing her cover worth stopping? What came next? If you believe in justice prevailing against discrimination, hit subscribe because tomorrow's episode reveals how a 16-year-old prodigy became America's secret weapon against domestic terrorism. Zora Williams wasn't supposed to be exceptional. Growing up in Chicago's South Side, she was just another black girl expected to fight twice as hard for half the recognition. But by age 8, her parents, both linguistics professors at the University of Chicago, realized their daughter wasn't just bright, she was extraordinary. While neighborhood kids played hopscotch, Zora deciphered complex ciphers, mastered Mandarin, and analyzed behavioral patterns with uncanny precision. Her bedroom walls weren't covered with pop stars, but with complex algorithmic equations and global terrorist network maps that she'd created for fun. Her parents nurtured her gifts despite the challenges. When the local school couldn't keep up, they homeschooled her while fighting for better opportunities. "Your mind is your weapon," her father would say when neighborhood kids mocked her intelligence or when store security followed her through aisles. Her mother added, "And justice will be your shield." They couldn't have known how literally their daughter would take those words. The CIA came knocking when Zora turned 14. Operation Prodigy. They called it a classified initiative to identify extraordinary youth with capabilities adults couldn't match. In an age where younger operatives could access places and information traditional agents couldn't, Zora was their golden ticket. Initial psychological evaluations showed she possessed the perfect combination: brilliant analytical skills, physical adaptability, and an unshakable moral compass, forged through years of facing discrimination. Training was brutal. Dawn runs through simulated urban environments. Afternoons mastering encryption techniques that confounded veteran agents. Evenings perfecting 5 different fighting styles, adapted for her small frame. While other teens worried about prom dates, Zora learned how to disarm bombs and create foolproof covers. She excelled at everything except one thing: believing in herself. Despite outperforming agents twice her age, the whispers followed her. Too young, too inexperienced, too black in a field dominated by older white men. Her exceptional abilities couldn't shield her from the sideways glances, the questions about her qualifications, the surprise when she spoke multiple languages fluently. 2 successful missions later, one preventing a human trafficking operation in Detroit, another stopping a bioweapon exchange in Atlanta, Zora had proven herself. But the current mission was different, purely domestic, deeply personal. The briefing came directly from handler Diane Chen, one of the few women of color in leadership positions. "Pure patriots," Chen explained, sliding photos across the table. "Domestic terrorist group, with cells across the Midwest, planning something big in Chicago, multiple targets, all minority neighborhoods." The images showed reconnaissance photos, weapons caches, and encrypted communications that agency analysts had partially decoded. "Why me?" Zora asked, though she already knew. "You can blend into the environments they're targeting. You're young, enough to access social circles we can't penetrate. And frankly," Chen said with rare candor, "you understand what's at stake better than most agents here." The mission parameters were clear. Go undercover as a transfer student at Lincoln Park High School, where several suspected pure patriots had children enrolled. Gather intelligence, identify leadership, stop whatever attack was coming. What wasn't? Said was equally clear. Do it alone with minimal backup, because sending too many agents might tip off the group. It was the opportunity Zora had been working toward: complete field autonomy. It was also potentially suicide. "There's something else you should know," Chen added, hesitation in her voice. We have reason to believe law enforcement has been compromised. Chicago PD has officers sympathetic to pure patriots. Zora nodded, unsurprised. Growing up black in America had taught her that uniforms didn't guarantee protection. Sometimes they guaranteed the opposite. She accepted the mission without hesitation, unaware that within 72 hours she would face the most dangerous situation of her young career, being handcuffed on a street corner by Officer James Callahan, a man whose racism was matched only by his connections to the very group she was hunting. As Zora packed her specialized equipment into an ordinary-looking backpack, she couldn't have known that the seemingly minor confrontation with Callahan would set off a chain reaction that would either cement her legacy as the agency's youngest hero or end with her name on a classified memorial wall that few would ever see. Zora's first week undercover at Lincoln Park High produced more questions than answers. Playing the role of Zora Jackson, transfer student from Detroit with an attitude problem, she carefully observed the social hierarchies. Unlike CIA training simulations, real high school proved more challenging, especially when you're a black girl trying to stay invisible while gathering intelligence. The discrimination began on day one. Security waved white students through metal detectors while pulling Zora aside for random checks. Teachers interrupted her correct answers, called on her last, and scrutinized her work with unnecessary rigor. When she challenged a history teacher's sanitized version of racial injustice in America, she earned detention for being confrontational. Was this normal high school bias or something more targeted? Principal Walter Morgan particularly troubled her. The middle-aged white administrator with military-precise posture watched black and Latino students with thinly veiled contempt. When a white student pushed a black freshman into lockers, Morgan looked away. When Zora helped the boy up, Morgan appeared within seconds, warning her about causing trouble. His office, strategically positioned to monitor the main hallway, had reinforced locks that seemed excessive for a school administrator. During her second detention, Zora noted Morgan receiving a visitor, a police officer, whose face she couldn't see, their conversation too quiet to overhear. The clues emerged slowly. A substitute teacher's laptop, left momentarily unattended, revealed browsing history with pure patriots rhetoric. A janitor's closet containing more sophisticated radio equipment than any school would need. A pattern of specific students, all white, all from wealthy families receiving passes to leave school during the same weekly time slot. Excused for community service, the passes read. But Zora's surveillance showed no community service, just meetings. At a warehouse in a predominantly black neighborhood recently targeted for revitalization that had displaced dozens of families. On day 9, Zora made her first real connection. Marcus Johnson, student journalist investigating the so-called revitalization projects. Tall, confident, with sharp eyes that missed nothing, Marcus had spent months documenting how black businesses were systematically pushed out of gentrifying neighborhoods. Nobody cares unless white people are the victims, Marcus told her while showing photos of families evicted from generations-old homes. The system works exactly as designed. Zora played her role, perfectly interested, but not too interested, while assessing whether Marcus could be an asset or a liability. His research potentially provided perfect cover for investigating Pure Patriot's connections to the development company. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. While accidentally bumping into the substitute teacher, Miss Reynolds, Zora planted a specialized CIA listening device disguised as a normal thumb drive on her laptop. That night, the audio feed captured Reynolds speaking to someone about the community center operation scheduled for the coming weekend. The Douglas Community Center, named for Frederick Douglass, served predominantly black and immigrant populations. According to the conversation, something was planned during the center's annual cultural celebration, expected to draw hundreds of attendees. Breaking into Principal Morgan's office after hours nearly ended Zora's mission prematurely. As she photographed documents linking Morgan to Pure Patriot's financial transactions, a security guard's unexpected patrol forced her to hide beneath the desk. When the guard left, she discovered something chilling, a detailed blueprint of the community center with key structural supports marked in red. Not suspicious on its own, but combined with shipping manifests for industrial chemicals that could create explosives, the evidence was damning. Zora transmitted the intelligence to Handler Chen through an encrypted channel disguised as ordinary teen social media activity. Possible imminent threat to Douglas Center, multiple casualties likely. Evidence links school administration requesting backup. Chen's response came hours later. Maintain cover, gathering resources, need more concrete evidence before we can move. The agency's caution was procedurally correct but frustrating. People would die while bureaucracy churned. That night, returning to her CIA-arranged apartment, Zora sensed something wrong before entering. The imperceptible shift in the doorframe position, the faint odor of unfamiliar cologne. Someone had been inside. Their systematic sweep revealed surveillance devices planted in every room, cameras disguised as smoke detectors, microphones hidden in light fixtures. Sophisticated equipment, professionally installed. The message was clear. Someone knew exactly who she was. Do you think Morgan was always a racist, or did something turn him into a monster? Comment number 1 if you believe hateful people are born that way, or number 2 if you think they're created through life experiences. Like this video if you think Zora should trust Marcus with the truth about her mission, or subscribe if you think she should keep her cover intact at all costs. The next part reveals how Zora handles being hunted while still trying to save hundreds of innocent lives. Will she maintain her cover when the threats become personal, or will she be forced to reveal her true identity sooner than planned? The anonymous threats began the next morning. Opening her locker, Zora found a note. "We know what you're doing. Stop now or suffer consequences." Primitive intimidation tactics, but effective when combined with the other changes she noticed. Students who previously talked to her now avoided eye contact. Teachers watched her with new suspicion. The hallways felt charged with hostility, aimed directly at her. During chemistry, her lab partner accidentally on purpose splashed caustic solution toward her face. Only Zora's reflexes prevented serious injury. "Clumsy me," the girl said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. When Zora reported the incident, the teacher suggested she was overreacting and playing the race card. The harassment escalated throughout the week. Her gym clothes disappeared, replaced with a shirt bearing a crude racial slur. The school did nothing. Her assignments vanished from teachers' inboxes despite confirmation receipts. The vice principal suggested she was looking for special treatment. Each incident isolated in a system designed to make victims question their reality. Then the graffiti appeared in her neighborhood, pure patriot symbols, spray-painted across buildings predominantly housing black families. Police responded with notepad commentary rather than action. "Probably just kids," one officer said, though the symbols matched exactly those in CIA intelligence briefings about the terrorist group. The connection between Officer James Callahan and pure patriots revealed itself by accident. While conducting surveillance on Principal Morgan, Zora photographed Morgan meeting with Callahan behind a restaurant. The officer accepted an envelope, checked the contents, then handed Morgan a flash drive. Their body language suggested conspiracy, not legitimate police business. Callahan's patrol route, Zora discovered, perfectly overlapped with neighborhoods experiencing the highest rates of suspicious intimidation incidents against minorities. Following Callahan proved dangerous but necessary. After his shift, the officer drove to an industrial area outside official jurisdiction. There he met with 3 men, whose military precise movements suggested formal training. They examined papers, pointed to maps, and handled what appeared to be detonator components. Zora captured everything with a specialized camera disguised as an ordinary phone case, developed by the CIA's tech division specifically for young operatives who wouldn't draw attention while appearing to take selfies. The flash caught Callahan's attention. His head snapped up, eyes narrowing as he scanned the darkness. Zora ducked behind a dumpster, heart pounding. Had he seen her? The answer came minutes later when a car slowly cruised past her hiding spot, high-beam lights sweeping methodically across the area. Zora remained motionless until the vehicle disappeared, then used back alleys to escape. The following morning, images appeared on her phone photographs of her taking surveillance photos. The message attached read, "We see you seeing us." Someone had been watching her watch them. The hunter had become the hunted. When she transmitted this development to handler Chen, the response was delayed by hours unusual for their communication. Protocol. When it finally came, Chen's message seemed oddly worded, missing their established security phrases. Either the handler was under duress, or someone had compromised their channel. Confirmation came brutally that evening. Entering the parking garage beneath her apartment building, Zora sensed the ambush seconds before it materialized. 3 men in black tactical gear emerged from behind concrete pillars, blocking all exits. Their movements suggested military or police training, no wasted motion, perfect triangulation to prevent escape. They carried no visible weapons, but moved with the confidence of those who didn't need them. "The girl playing spy," the largest one said, voice echoing in the concrete. Structure. Time to stop playing. Zora assessed her options with cold precision. The CIA had trained her for exactly this scenario. What they hadn't trained her for was recognizing one of her attackers, a security guard from Lincoln Park High. The school's infiltration ran deeper than she'd imagined. The first man lunged. Zora used his momentum against him, redirecting his charge into a concrete pillar with a sickening crack. The second grabbed for her throat. She ducked under his arm, struck precisely at nerve clusters that temporarily paralyzed his right side. The third proved more challenging, clearly the most experienced fighter. They exchanged blows with increasing intensity until Zora identified his pattern, feinted left, then delivered a devastating combination to vulnerable pressure points. Breathing hard, surrounded by groaning attackers, Zora knew she had minutes before reinforcements might arrive. She needed to disappear, regroup, and establish new secure communications. Her apartment was compromised, her school cover likely blown, and the evidence she'd collected over 2 weeks had vanished from her secure drop point behind a loose brick in the parking structure. Most disturbing was the evidence of a mole within CIA local operations. Only someone with insider knowledge could have compromised her communications with handler Chen, known her safe-house location, and neutralized her evidence cache. Someone high enough in the organization to access classified operation details, but compromised enough to risk treason charges by revealing them. As Zora slipped into the night, using every evasion technique in her training, one question haunted her. If she couldn't trust her own agency, who could she trust to help stop the imminent terror attack? With her secure channels compromised and apartment under surveillance, Zora needed an ally. Marcus Johnson represented her only viable option, connected enough to access information, independent enough to potentially remain outside pure patriots. Influence. Finding him required calculated risk, approaching him even more so. "I need your help," Zora told him, maintaining her cover as a regular student while explaining she'd discovered concerning information about Principal Morgan's involvement. "With the developers targeting black neighborhoods, I think they're planning something dangerous at the Douglas Center." Marcus's investigative instincts engaged immediately. "I've been tracking money moving through shell companies connected to those development projects. Something bigger than gentrification is happening." He showed her research mapping suspicious financial transfers linked to prominent Chicago politicians and business leaders, all flowing toward shell companies with variations of Patriot in their corporate filings. "There's a warehouse listed as property of Patriot Holding Group," Marcus explained. "Security's tight, but I've been watching patterns. Tonight's our best chance to document whatever they're hiding." Together they developed surveillance plans for an abandoned factory on Chicago's South Side. Marcus's local knowledge complemented Zora's tactical training. For the first time since her cover was compromised, Zora felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps with concrete evidence, she could bypass the compromised local CIA office and appeal directly to headquarters. The factory's exterior suggested abandonment, broken windows, faded signage, chain-link fencing with rusted "no trespassing" signs. But Zora noted the incongruities immediately. New security cameras disguised as damaged equipment, infrared sensors masked as ordinary fixtures, parked vehicles with government-grade radio antennas poorly concealed under weathered covers. This wasn't abandoned, it was carefully disguised. Stay in the shadows, Zora whispered as they approached. Those cameras are operational. Marcus nodded, following her lead as they navigated blind spots in the security system. Years of CIA training allowed Zora to identify and exploit weaknesses in the perimeter. Within minutes, they'd accessed a side entrance through an overlooked maintenance door. Inside revealed the operation's true scale. The factory floor had been converted into a staging area with weapons, tactical gear, and what appeared to be explosive components. Maps of Chicago covered walls, with red circles marking prominent community centers, churches, and businesses in predominantly minority neighborhoods. At the center, the Douglas Community Center was highlighted with tomorrow's date. "My God," Marcus whispered, documenting everything with his camera. "They're planning multiple attacks." Zora used her specialized CIA device to capture high-resolution images while recording conversations from a meeting room where voices echoed. The discussion confirmed her worst fears: coordinated bombs at multiple locations, timed to maximize casualties, designed to trigger racial conflicts across the city. "Once the dust settles," a voice explained, "public opinion will support emergency measures. Our people in government positions will implement the containment protocols. Phase 1 complete." As Zora recorded this critical intelligence, she noticed Marcus had disappeared from her side. Instinct told her something was wrong seconds before floodlights illuminated the factory floor, alarms blaring. "Excellent work, Agent Williams," Principal Morgan's voice came through speakers. "Or should I say, CIA Operation Shadow, emerging." From shadows, Morgan stood flanked by armed men, including Officer Callahan, and beside them, expression now hardened with contempt rather than journalistic curiosity, stood Marcus. "Did you really think we wouldn't identify a federal agent?" Marcus asked, voice dripping with disdain. "The CIA must be desperate, sending a child to do their work." The betrayal hit harder than any physical blow. Zora had evaluated Marcus as a potential asset based on his apparent passion for justice. She'd overlooked the possibility that his investigations were actually intelligence gathering for pure patriots, identifying community leaders and organizations for targeting. "The Prodigy operative," Morgan mocked as men surrounded her. "Brilliant but ultimately predictable. Your handler sold you out days ago." Zora fought with everything her training provided, incapacitating 3 men before the overwhelming numbers forced her down. Zip ties secured her wrists as Callahan delivered a vindictive punch to her ribs. "Not so special now," he sneered, the racist contempt naked in his eyes. "Just another troublemaker who didn't know her place." The beatings continued until Morgan ordered them stopped. "We need her coherent," he instructed. "She has information about what the agency knows." Through swollen eyes, Zora assessed her surroundings, calculating escape possibilities that dwindled with each passing second. Her equipment had been confiscated, communications cut. She was completely alone. A new figure entered, commanding immediate respect from everyone present. Distinguished, silver-haired, wearing an expensive suit that couldn't quite hide his military bearing, Senator Richard Hayes appeared nothing like the leader of a domestic terrorist organization. His public persona, as a moderate Republican focused on traditional values, masked his true agenda. "So this is the operative who almost discovered us," Hayes said, studying her with clinical detachment. "Sending a black teenager was clever. We wouldn't have noticed her if she hadn't been so effective." His compliment carried no warmth, merely professional assessment. "The Douglas Center is just the beginning," Hayes explained casually, as if discussing weather rather than mass murder. "Once the bombings occur, the public will demand protection. Security measures, increased police presence in troubled areas, special detention for suspicious individuals. And since we control the definition of suspicious, you're targeting your own citizens," Zora managed through split lips. "I'm saving this country from demographic destruction," Hayes corrected. "Sometimes medicine tastes bitter, but the patient needs it regardless." He nodded to his men. "Extract whatever she knows about CIA awareness of our operations, then dispose of her somewhere they'll never look." As they dragged her toward a secluded room, Zora's training reminded her, capture was temporary if you survived. Death was permanent. While intelligence officers were expected to die rather than reveal secrets, her youth protocol was different. stay alive at all costs, reveal non-critical information if necessary, and find opportunity within crisis. The opportunity would come. It had to, because hundreds of lives depended on her escaping this factory alive. Was Marcus truly evil all along, or was he being forced to cooperate? Comment number 1, if you think he was always working with pure patriots, or comment number 2 if you believe he might have been coerced. Like and subscribe if you're wondering whether Handler Chen actually betrayed Zora, or if something more complex is happening behind the scenes. Will Zora escape in time to save hundreds of innocent people at the Douglas Center? And just how high does this conspiracy go? The answers will shock you in the next part of this unbelievable true story of courage against overwhelming odds. The hidden lockpick woven into Zora's hairbeads was standard CIA issue for young female operatives, an adaptation of traditional African styling that doubled as escape tools. As her captors argued about interrogation techniques, Zora worked, the tiny metal implements free, careful to maintain the appearance of a defeated prisoner. Years of training had prepared her for this moment. Channel fear into focus, pain into purpose. The zip ties surrendered to the specialized pick with a P. Soft click. Maintaining the illusion of restraint, Zora assessed her surroundings. 2 guards outside the door, ventilation shaft overhead. 3 minutes until the patrol rotation would bring another guard to check on her. The decision was made in seconds. When the first guard entered, Zora appeared slumped and semi-conscious. His mistake was approaching alone. The nerve strike to his throat prevented any alarm as she used his own weight to pin him. The second guard's suspicion at the prolonged silence brought him inside directly into Zora's ambush. Both men unconscious, she secured their weapons, reclaimed her specialized CIA device and disappeared into the ventilation system seconds before reinforcements arrived. Navigating the metal maze required every ounce of her training. Each junction presented options, each decision potentially fatal if wrong. Guided by mental mapping of the factory layout, Zora worked toward the northeast exit where security appeared lightest. The voices below revealed the operations expanding. Scope not just Chicago, but coordinated attacks across multiple cities, all designed to trigger nationwide emergency powers. Emerging through a maintenance hatch, Zora encountered the night shift security. 2 men unprepared for a teenager dropping from the ceiling. The ensuing fight lasted seconds, but not before one activated his radio. Alarms blared throughout the complex as Zora sprinted toward the perimeter fence escape, required traversing 2 blocks of exposed industrial landscape, with pursuit closing fast. Urban evasion tactics kept her ahead using shadows, doubling back, creating false trails, but Chicago's streets eventually funneled her into a commercial area where early morning workers were beginning their day. Officer Callahan's patrol car appeared at the intersection, blocking her path. His face registered recognition, then malicious satisfaction as he emerged with weapon drawn. "Stop right there," he called loudly, ensuring witnesses. "That girl stole from the electronics store," the accusation calculated to justify her public. Detention drew attention from morning commuters. Cameras appeared, recording the confrontation between white officer and black teenager. Callahan played his role perfectly, handcuffing Zora with unnecessary force while bystanders watched. "You're making a big mistake," Zora warned quietly. "No, you made the mistake," Callahan replied, tightening the cuffs to painful levels. "Thinking. You could interfere with our plans. Nobody will believe a juvenile delinquent over a decorated officer." The growing crowd created both problem and opportunity. Pure patriots wouldn't risk exposing their operation with public violence, but Callahan's arrest effectively neutralized her without raising suspicion. As he pushed her toward the cruiser, Zora made her decision. The device in her pocket overlooked in Callahan's hasty search had sufficient evidence to expose the operation if it reached the right authorities. But first, she needed leverage against immediate threat. "I am Agent Zora Williams, CIA Operation Shadow," she announced loudly enough for nearby phones to record. "This officer is involved with domestic terrorists planning attacks today." The statement froze Callahan momentarily exactly, as calculated. Phone cameras swung toward them as Callahan recovered, laughing nervously. Kid's delusional, probably on something. Check my left jacket pocket, Zora instructed the nearest bystander. There's identification. Before Callahan could interfere, a woman retrieved the specialized ID. The technology activated on touch, displaying holographic CIA credentials impossible to counterfeit. The crowd's murmurs shifted from skepticism to confusion. She's lying, Callahan insisted, voice rising. That's fake. The sirens announced Captain Martinez's arrival. Unlike Callahan, Martinez had built his career on community trust. His expression shifted from professional neutrality to shock as he recognized the credentials. Officer Callahan. Uncuff her immediately, Martinez ordered after verification calls. You don't understand, Callahan protested. She's interfering with what exactly? Martinez questioned sharply, eyes narrowing. His hand moved subtly toward his weapon, as Callahan's demeanor suggested unpredictability. The moment Zora was uncuffed, she whispered urgently to Martinez, Douglas Community Center. Bombing planned today. Multiple casualties expected. Pure Patriots terrorist group. Martinez's expression remained professionally neutral, but his eyes registered understanding. We need to talk privately, he said, guiding her toward his vehicle while instructing officers to secure the scene. As Callahan's face drained of color, Zora knew she'd temporarily gained protection, but calls to CIA headquarters returned disturbing. News or local office communications were routing through unauthorized channels. Her handler Chen was unreachable, official protocols compromised. They've infiltrated law enforcement and government agencies, Zora explained to Martinez in the privacy of his vehicle, including the local CIA office. Martinez nodded grimly. I've suspected corruption in certain precincts for months, officers enforcing unwritten rules about which neighborhoods receive protection. The immediate challenge was clear. How could they stop multiple coordinated attacks with no way to verify which authorities remained uncorrupted? With the Douglas Center event beginning in hours, hundreds of lives hung in balance, while normal channels for response were compromised. Senator Hayes is behind this, Zora revealed. Public figure, private terrorist. Martinez's shock confirmed he wasn't part of the conspiracy, but his next words chilled her. Hayes has connections throughout state government. If he's involved, we can't trust official channels. The news broadcast playing in Martinez's car added final confirmation of their isolation. Senator Hayes appeared on screen announcing a special security initiative to protect vulnerable communities, following numerous credible threats identified by his office. The operation, he explained, would deploy special law enforcement units to high-risk areas, all neighborhoods with predominantly minority populations. They're positioning their people throughout the city, Martinez realized, creating excuse for occupation. With normal channels compromised and time running out, Zora faced the most difficult decision of her young career: operate completely alone against a nationwide terrorist network, with only a single police captain of uncertain reliability as potential ally. Complete isolation changes operational parameters. CIA training for compromised missions emphasized 3 priorities: secure communications, trustworthy allies, and defensible positions. Zora needed all 3 immediately. I know someone who might help, she told Martinez after confirming his vehicle hadn't been compromised with listening devices. An off-grid resource. Former CIA agent Elijah Jackson had become urban legend within the agency. The operative who walked away after 30 years of distinguished service, disappearing so completely that even the organization specializing in finding people couldn't locate him. Only operational necessity had led to Zora receiving his file during training as a case study in perfect extraction technique. Jackson had chosen Chicago's western outskirts for his retirement, a modest cabin disguised as abandoned property, but containing sophisticated security and communications equipment disconnected from vulnerable networks. Finding it required navigating deliberately misleading landmarks and falsified property records. Martinez provided transportation, but remained emotionally distant professional courtesy rather than full alliance. His decades in Chicago PD had taught caution, especially with federal agents, whose agendas often prioritized national concerns over local lives. The racial profiling incident occurred at a supply stop outside city limits. Zora entered the rural, general store for essentials while Martinez refueled. The white clerk followed her through narrow aisles, watching as she selected first aid supplies and non-perishable food. "Can I help you find something?" he asked with practiced suspicion rather than service. "Just getting basic supplies," Zora replied, maintaining her cover as ordinary teenager. When she approached the counter, the clerk demanded, "Empty your pockets." "Excuse me." "Standard procedure for certain customers," he emphasized with pointed glance at her skin. "Loss prevention." Before Zora could respond, Martinez entered, badge visible. The clerk's demeanor transformed instantly. "Officer, glad you're here. Was just about to search this one. They've been stealing lately." "They?" Martinez questioned. The clerk's meaning remained unspoken but clear. Martinez's expression hardened. "She's with me. Federal investigation." The simple statement carried sufficient authority to end the confrontation, but the incident reinforced the pervasive racism they were fighting against, not just organized extremists, but everyday discrimination that provided fertile ground for pure patriots' ideology to spread. Jackson's cabin appeared abandoned, weather-beaten exterior, overgrown approach, visible disrepair. Only subtle indicators revealed sophisticated surveillance. Disturbed pattern of leaves suggesting pressure sensors, slight temperature variations where camouflaged cameras monitored approaches, specialized glass that appeared dirty but actually contained filtering technology. Before they reached the door, Jackson's voice came through hidden speakers. "Federal agent with police escort. Interesting combination. Agent Zora Williams, Operation Shadow," she identified formally. "Training case file 2781B. Silence followed, then the mechanical sounds of multiple locks disengaging. The door opened, to reveal Elijah Jackson older than his file photos, silver-streaked dreadlocks pulled back, eyes sharp with intelligence, undiminished by age. His large frame filled the doorway, posture suggesting readiness despite apparent retirement. "They're recruiting children now," he observed, studying Zora. "Must be desperate times." "Desperate enough that I need your help," she confirmed. Inside, the cabin's interior contradicted its exterior state-of-the-art communications equipment, weapons cache, and intelligence-gathering apparatus occupied what appeared from outside to be deteriorating rooms. Jackson had created his own independent operations center, completely off official grids. "Pure patriots." Jackson nodded after hearing their situation. "Been tracking them for years, hobby in retirement." He displayed his own intelligence wall. Photos, connections, financial trails that mirrored information Zora had gathered, but extended further, identifying links to political donors, media figures, and corporate interests. "It's bigger than Hayes," Jackson explained. "He's just the public face. Behind him, private military contractors, weapons manufacturers, certain tech companies all profit from creating domestic conflict. Fear sells security products. Racial tension justifies surveillance technology. Divide the population, then sell protection from the divisions you created." Zora shared her intelligence, particularly the imminent attack plans. Jackson's expression grew grave as he recognized the strategy. Classic false flag operation. Create terror. Blame convenient scapegoats. Implement prepared solutions that actually advance your agenda. As they developed countermeasures, the cabin's perimeter alarms activated. Security monitors showed vehicles approaching through the woods' tactical team formation, professional operators rather than local police. "They found us," Martinez said unnecessarily. "Impossible," Jackson countered. "This location is completely secure." The realization hit Zora simultaneously. They tracked Martinez's vehicle, standard department GPS. The ambush confirmed their worst fears about infiltration levels. Pure patriots had access to police tracking systems, meaning Hayes's influence extended throughout law enforcement infrastructure. The attackers moved with military precision, covering approaches, deploying specialized equipment to defeat Jackson's. "Security measures, East Tunnel," Jackson directed, activating a hidden passage beneath a bookcase. "Emergency exit to the river, boat moored there." The firefight erupted as they gathered essential equipment. Jackson's automated defenses slowed the assault team, but couldn't stop overwhelming numbers. As bullets splintered the cabin's reinforced walls, Jackson made his decision. "Get the evidence to someone who can act on it," he told Zora, pressing a specialized storage device into her hand. "I'll hold them here." "We can all escape," Zora insisted. Jackson's smile contained resignation and determination. "Sometimes the mission requires sacrifice. They've already locked onto heat signatures. Someone needs to stay behind to register." On thermal, Martinez understood first. "He's buying us time." The former CIA agent positioned himself at defensive points, weapons ready. 30 years serving a system I thought was flawed but fixable. Maybe helping you stop this is how I finally get it right." As Zora and Martinez escaped through the tunnel, Jackson's last words followed them. "Find Director Emerson at headquarters, only person high enough who isn't compromised." The explosion behind them confirmed Jackson's final stand, denying the attackers both his capture and his intelligence cache. The sacrifice created precious minutes for their escape, but Zora felt the weight of another life lost to the mission. The boat carried them downriver as pursuit scrambled to regroup, but both knew temporary escape wasn't victory. The news reached them via Martinez's secure radio channel. Jackson's cabin destruction reported as "domestic terrorist hideout neutralized." Hayes appeared on emergency broadcasts, praising law enforcement for preventing an attack by racial extremists. The narrative was being shaped in real time, painting Jackson as terrorist rather than hero. Have you ever been judged unfairly based solely on your appearance? Comment number 1 if you've experienced prejudice firsthand, or number 2 if you've witnessed it happening to someone else. Like this video if you believe Elijah Jackson's sacrifice was heroic, and subscribe if you want to see how Zora honors his memory by stopping the Pure Patriots plot. What would you do if you were Zora right now? Trust the system that might be corrupted, or go completely off-grid to fight alone? And will Martinez remain loyal as the danger increases, or will pressure force him to choose between his badge and doing what's right? The video spread faster than either Zora or Martinez anticipated. Bystander footage of her handcuff declaration, "I am Agent Zora Williams, CIA Operation Shadow," reached millions within hours. The conspiracy ecosystem that typically traded in paranoid fantasies now possessed actual evidence of a teenage CIA operative. The narrative splintered across ideological lines. Progressive platforms questioned why the CIA was recruiting minors from minority communities. Conservative outlets suggested she was mentally unstable, creating elaborate fantasies. Fringe groups debated whether she represented government overreach or was herself a victim of experimental programs. All variations shared one commonality. None believed her warnings about imminent terrorist attacks. Senator Hayes leveraged his media connections masterfully. His publicist coordinated appearances across networks, where he expressed grave concern about disturbed teenagers making dangerous allegations, while emphasizing his commitment to maintaining security in vulnerable communities. Medical experts who had never met Zora diagnosed her with various psychological conditions. Former intelligence officials questioned the ethics of a minor claiming federal authority. The most damaging material came from Officer Callahan, who provided doctored body camera footage showing Zora behaving erratically before her arrest. Digital specialists might eventually identify the manipulation, but truth would arrive too late to prevent the coming attacks. "They're creating perfect deniability," Martinez observed as they monitored news from a motel outside Chicago. "When the bombs detonate, your warnings will be dismissed as delusions from an unstable teenager seeking attention." The falsified evidence mounted hourly. School records appeared showing disciplinary issues and psychological evaluations, all manufactured but sufficiently convincing for public consumption. Alleged juvenile records suggested previous instances of fantasy role-playing as authority figures. Each piece further undermined Zora's credibility. Most concerning was the complete silence from CIA headquarters, no acknowledgement of Operation Shadow, no confirmation or denial of Zora's status. The absence spoke volumes about Hayes' influence reaching the highest levels of government. The final isolation came with news that destroyed Zora's remaining hope for official intervention. Her parents had been detained for questioning regarding their daughter's concerning behavior. The footage showed Professors Williams being escorted from their university offices by federal agents, their expressions confused, then fearful, as they were separated into different vehicles. "This is my fault," Zora whispered, watching her mother's terrified face on the screen. "I should have protected them." Martinez's response surprised her. "This isn't about you. They've planned this for years. Your parents are leveraged because you're the only one who can expose them." The tactical situation had deteriorated beyond salvage through conventional means. Communications compromised, evidence discredited, allies eliminated or neutralized, public opinion manipulated. With the Douglas Center event beginning in 18 hours and other targets identified from Jackson's intelligence still vulnerable, Zora faced impossible choices with limited resources. "We need to contact Director Emerson directly," Zora decided. Jackson believed she wasn't compromised. The challenge remained how to reach CIA headquarters when every electronic communication channel was potentially monitored. Commercial flights would flag their identities. Public transportation remained under surveillance. Digital communications would be intercepted. "I might know someone," Martinez offered. "Former Air Force pilot who owes me. Operates private charter under the radar." As they prepared to leave, Martinez's police radio crackled with an all-points bulletin. "Suspect Zora Williams, armed and dangerous, accompanied by Captain Robert Martinez, now considered accomplice. Approach with extreme caution. Shoot if necessary." The de-escalation confirmed Hayes was eliminating all restrictions on his response. With Martinez now officially labeled criminal rather than law enforcement, they had lost even the minimal protection his badge provided. The manhunt now authorized lethal force against both. Martinez's contact provided transportation that avoided commercial tracking, an aging cargo plane, making legitimate deliveries along the eastern seaboard. The pilot asked no questions beyond whether their presence would bring trouble to his operation. Martinez's assurance satisfied him, though his expression suggested doubt when assessing Zora's youth. As Chicago disappeared beneath cloud cover, Zora reviewed Jackson's intelligence cache connections between pure patriots and legitimate businesses, financial transactions through shell companies, communications between Hayes and military contractors. Each piece verified her suspicions, but required Director Emerson's authority to activate appropriate response teams. The cargo flight's approach to a small private airfield outside Washington, D.C. should have provided anonymity. Instead, they discovered vehicles with government plates awaiting their arrival. Someone had anticipated their movements, despite all precautions. "We've been compromised," Martinez confirmed, spotting tactical teams positioning around the runway. The pilot, sensing trouble, offered alternative landing options. "Got a friend with a strip about 40 miles south, off official charts." The diversion bought precious hours, but further depleted their dwindling time before the attacks. Each delay increased civilian risk while decreasing operational options. The unspoken reality loomed larger with each passing hour. They might not reach Emerson before the bombs detonated. Once landed at the secondary location, Martinez secured transportation through his network of contacts outside official channels. The journey to CIA headquarters would require navigating roadblocks established throughout the region, all hunting for a teenage girl now labeled domestic threat. "We need disguises," Martinez suggested. "No," Zora countered. "We need to stop being reactive. They've anticipated every defense. Time for offense." Her plan emerged from CIA training modules on asymmetric response to overwhelming opposition. When conventional approaches fail, change the paradigm entirely. The question wasn't how to reach headquarters undetected, but how to make headquarters come to them. Infiltrating Hayes's campaign headquarters represented the highest risk operation of Zora's career. Unlike covert intelligence gathering at school or surveillance from safe distance, this required direct penetration of the enemy's central operation with zero backup. The 10-story downtown Chicago building housed both legitimate political activities and, Zora suspected, pure patriots' command center. "This is suicide," Martinez argued when she outlined her plan. "Place will have security beyond anything you've faced." "Exactly why they won't expect direct approach," Zora countered. "They're hunting us everywhere except their own territory." The disguise transformed her from notorious fugitive to invisible service worker, hair concealed beneath standard maintenance uniform cap. Posture altered to suggest middle age rather than youth, service cart providing both cover and transportation for equipment. Martinez remained outside as emergency extraction, monitoring security channels from position across the street. The service entrance security checkpoint presented the first challenge. Zora approached, pushing her cart, head down in practiced submissiveness that security often failed to register. The guard barely glanced at the work order she presented, forged documentation for HVAC maintenance on executive floor ventilation. "Systems. Another one?" he grumbled, checking minimal identification. "Third inspection this month." "New regulations," Zora offered, in carefully practiced voice suggesting boredom with bureaucracy. "Nobody tells us anything except do the job." The signature social engineering technique worked exactly as CIA training predicted. The guard, relating to perceived shared frustration with management, waved her through with minimal verification. Once inside, Zora navigated service corridors mapped from public building plans, avoiding main areas while working toward the executive level. The maintenance disguise provided access to restricted areas without raising alarms. Service workers remained functionally invisible to executives and their security human infrastructure, taken for granted unless malfunctioning. Zora exploited this blindness, systematically working through utility spaces while gathering intelligence. The breakthrough came on the executive floor. While appearing to check ceiling vents, Zora accessed Hayes's private office during his scheduled lunch meeting. The senator's legendary confidence manifested in operational security lapses, computer left unlocked, files accessible, secure room key stored in predictable location. The evidence exceeded her expectations. Complete attack plans for all targets, laid out in meticulous detail. Photographs identifying all buildings marked for destruction, including churches, community centers, and businesses in minority neighborhoods. Timing sequences designed to maximize casualties rather than property damage. Most damning was the list of all corrupt officials involved: police captains, judges, federal agents, and politicians across multiple jurisdictions. Zora documented everything with her specialized CIA device, transmitting immediately to Martinez's secure receiver. If they couldn't reach Director Emerson directly, they would accumulate sufficient evidence to force action through alternative channels. The most critical discovery came in Hayes's private safe access codes to the explosive devices already planted throughout the city. The Pure Patriots had established remote detonation capability, controlled through encrypted channels, but the physical failsafe required direct input of authorization codes if communications were disrupted. Zora photographed these codes, providing potential means to prevent detonation, even if they couldn't remove the devices in time. So focused on documentation, she failed to notice the office door opening until too late. "Maintenance inspection complete?" asked Hayes's chief of staff, expression shifting from professional inquiry to recognition as Zora turned. "Security, intruder in the senator's office." The practiced escape route through service corridors now became frantic evasion as alarms activated throughout the building. Security personnel converged from multiple access points, while Zora navigated toward emergency exits identified during planning. Martinez's voice in her earpiece confirmed he was repositioning for extraction, but obstacles multiplied with each passing second. Rounding a corner, Zora encountered Officer Callahan, accompanied by Hayes's private security. His expression registered malicious satisfaction at finding her alone. "The spy who couldn't stay hidden," he taunted, weapon raised. "No more running." The ensuing confrontation demonstrated why the CIA invested in training teenage operatives. Where adult agents relied on strength and experience, Zora utilized advantages adults couldn't match: flexibility, smaller target profile, and opponents' underestimation of her capabilities. The confined hallway negated Callahan's firearm advantage, while enhancing Zora's close-quarters combat training. The fight progressed with brutal efficiency. Zora neutralized the first security officer, with precision strikes to vulnerable nerve clusters. The second received devastating combination targeting balance centers. Callahan proved more challenging. His police training included countermeasures. Against standard takedown techniques, their combat escalated in intensity as Callahan abandoned professional restraint for personal vengeance. "Should have stayed in your place," he spat between strikes. "People like you don't belong in this country." The racist fury made him predictable. Zora identified his pattern, created deliberate opening, then delivered combination strikes that leveraged his momentum against structural supports. The impact, incapacitated without killing important distinction for potential future testimony. Injured but mobile, Zora secured the unconscious officer's weapon and continued toward extraction. Martinez's voice guided her through remaining obstacles until they reunited at the emergency exit, escaping moments before building lockdown completed. "Did you get everything?" Martinez asked as they disappeared into Chicago's afternoon crowds, blending with pedestrians while avoiding security cameras. "Complete operation details," Zora confirmed. "Attack plans, personnel involved, detonation codes." The mission success came with significant cost. During their escape, Zora sustained injuries requiring medical attention, knife wound during the fight, with Callahan's team had penetrated defensive layers, causing blood loss that would eventually compromise function without treatment. Standard protocol required secure medical facilities, but all official channels remained compromised. Civilian hospitals would report gunshot or knife wounds to authorities, immediately revealing their location. The wound wasn't immediately life-threatening, but required intervention within hours to prevent debilitating effects. Martinez made the decision without consulting Zora. "I know somewhere we can get help." The storefront clinic served Chicago's undocumented population, people who similarly couldn't access official medical care without risking detention. The doctor asked no questions beyond those necessary for treatment, recognizing fellow travelers in the shadows of official systems. While receiving treatment, Zora monitored news broadcasts covering Hayes's public response to the security breach. The senator appeared surrounded by additional security, expressing deep concern about mentally disturbed individuals making dangerous accusations, while announcing enhanced security measures at all public gatherings to ensure community safety. The press conference's background visual told the true story. Hayes stood before chart, showing increased police presence precisely in neighborhoods targeted for bombing. The protection represented actually positioning corrupt officers to control aftermath and ensure maximum impact of the attacks. Most disturbing was footage of Zora's parents being interrogated about their daughter's criminal activities and disturbing behavior. The psychological torture was evident in their expressions: confusion at accusations, fear for their daughter, helplessness against the system targeting them. The message to Zora was clear: surrender or watch your family destroyed. 8 hours remained before the first scheduled detonation. The evidence they had gathered could prevent the attacks and expose the conspiracy, but only if it reached someone with authority and integrity to act. Jackson's final advice, find Director Emerson, remained their only viable option, but reaching CIA headquarters in their current condition seemed impossible. "We need to change the approach," Zora decided. "They control all official channels and have turned public opinion against us. So we stopped trying to work within the system." "What's the alternative?" Martinez questioned. "We take everything public, not through media Hayes controls, but directly to everyone simultaneously." The plan crystallized bypass compromised official channels entirely by releasing all evidence across multiple platforms simultaneously. The risk was substantial: classified operations exposed, intelligence methods revealed, ongoing investigations compromised. For Zora, potential disciplinary action or even prosecution for violating secrecy protocols paled against the alternative of hundreds of civilian casualties. "They've created the perfect trap," Zora observed. "If we follow rules, people die. If we break them, we're labeled criminals." "Welcome to the reality of being black in America," Martinez replied without humor. "Damned for following rules, damned for breaking them. System designed to make you lose either way." The observation carried weight beyond their immediate crisis. revealing the deeper parallel between their current situation and the daily experience of minorities navigating systems designed for their disadvantage. The pure patriots hadn't created America's racial divisions. They had merely weaponized existing fractures. Do you believe it's ever justified to break rules when the system itself is corrupt? Comment number 1, if you think Zora should follow proper channels despite the risks, or number 2, if going outside. The system is sometimes necessary when lives are at stake. Like this video if you think Martinez is showing true courage by risking his career to do what's right. And subscribe if you want to see whether their desperate plan succeeds against overwhelming odds. Will Zora be able to save the community, center and other targets before the bombs detonate? And what price will she and her family pay for standing against powerful forces determined to maintain America's racial hierarchies? The abandoned storage unit Martinez secured provided temporary shelter, while Zora's injuries stabilized. The knife wound had been professionally treated, but exhaustion and blood loss took their toll. For the first time since her mission began, Zora's legendary focus wavered. Slumped against concrete walls, she watched her hands trembling not from fear but from physical depletion that even elite training couldn't overcome. "You need rest," Martinez advised, securing their perimeter with makeshift alarms. "Can't save anyone if you collapse." "People will die if I rest," Zora countered, checking news reports on a burner phone. Hayes had escalated his public campaign against her, releasing doctored surveillance footage showing her attacking security personnel without provocation. Digital experts might eventually prove manipulation, but truth would arrive too late. For bombing victims. Most disturbing was footage of her parents. Professors Williams appeared on screen with FBI agents, reading prepared statements denouncing their daughter's concerning behavior and dangerous delusions. Their eyes told different stories. Subtle signals developed during Zora's childhood when academic colleagues made racist comments at faculty gatherings. Micro-expressions conveying "we're being coerced," while verbally disavowing her. Seeing their distress broke something inside Zora that CIA training hadn't addressed. The philosophical question that haunted every undercover operative was the mission, worth destroying your humanity, became suddenly personal rather than theoretical. "I've spent my life fighting racism by becoming what they never expected," Zora whispered. "A black girl so exceptional they couldn't ignore me, so valuable they had to listen." She examined her bloodied hands. "What if that's exactly what they wanted? To make me believe I could change the system by becoming part of it?" Martinez, cleaning his service weapon, paused. "Are you questioning the mission or yourself?" "Both," Zora admitted. "Pure patriots are planning mass murder, but they're just extreme version of what already exists. Even if we stop these bombs, the system that created Hayes remains. My own agency might disavow me to protect themselves." The moment of vulnerability revealed what CIA psychological assessments had identified as both Zora's greatest strength and potential weakness. She hadn't surrendered her humanity for the mission. Unlike agents who compartmentalized emotions until they became functional sociopaths, Zora retained capability for empathy that made her simultaneously more effective with human intelligence and more vulnerable to emotional manipulation. The philosophical crisis was interrupted by Martinez's police scanner picking up emergency dispatch units, redirecting to Chicago Medical Center, where unidentified black male with gunshot wounds had arrived. The description matched Agent Jackson, supposedly killed during the cabin assault. "Impossible," Martinez stated. "No one could have survived that explosion." "Jackson was one of the best tactical specialists in CIA history," Zora countered. "Energy, returning with possibility of alliance. If anyone could fake death to evade capture, he would." The decision to investigate carried substantial risk. Hospital security would include both legitimate personnel and corrupted officers placed by Hayes. If Jackson truly survived, he represented crucial ally. If not, the diversion would deplete precious time before detonations. Infiltrating Chicago Medical Center required precision timing. Martinez created distraction at emergency entrance officer, requesting assistance with violent suspect, while Zora accessed through service entrance using maintenance credentials. The hospital's racial dynamics provided unfortunate advantage. Security paid minimal attention to young black maintenance staff. The gunshot victim's location revealed Hayes's awareness of potential survivor-armed guards positioned outside intensive care, visitor access restricted, communication channels monitored. Bypassing security required accessing ceiling maintenance routes, navigating between floors through ventilation systems that Zora's smaller frame managed, while Martinez coordinated through earpiece communication. When Zora finally accessed the room through ceiling access, her hope transformed to devastation. The patient wasn't Jackson, but one of Hayes's security personnel injured during the cabin assault. The entire situation was an elaborate trap designed to capture her. Retreat became immediately necessary, but hospital security had been alerted to unauthorized access. As Zora navigated back through maintenance areas, she encountered security teams methodically searching service corridors. Each evasion further depleted her energy reserves until simple movements required conscious effort. The C. Physical breaking point arrived simultaneously with emotional crisis. Cornered in mechanical room with pursuit closing, Zora's body began shutting down combination of injury, exhaustion, and stress, overwhelming even elite training. Her vision narrowed, breathing became labored, cognitive functions impaired. The legendary teenage operative pride of Operation Prodigy, youngest successful CIA field agent, faced limitations of human physiology. In this moment of extremity, memories surfaced not of CIA training, but childhood experiences navigating racial hostility. Her mother's voice during junior science competition, where judges dismissed her revolutionary algorithm, "They'll never acknowledge your brilliance, so make it impossible to ignore." Her father after neighborhood police harassed 12-year-old Zora for matching description of suspect. "Your intelligence is weapon they fear most. When systems fail, create better ones." The flashback provided clarity beyond tactical considerations. Hayes and Pure Patriots represented extreme manifestation of systemic racism, but fighting them required more than conventional opposition. Creating better systems sometimes meant working outside existing ones. Martinez located her moments before security teams arrived, providing extraction through service exit while building went into lockdown. Their escape into Chicago streets occurred. As Hayes announced emergency security protocols implemented citywide, effectively martial law in neighborhoods containing targets. 8 hours remaining, Zora noted, checking timeline against intelligence gathered. Not enough time to reach Director Emerson or verify which officials remain uncorrupted. The breaking point had arrived, but instead of surrender, it produced clarity. Conventional approaches had failed. Institutional responses were compromised. The only remaining option was what CIA training called asymmetric resolution, changing rules of engagement entirely. "We stop playing their game," Zora decided. "The bombs are physical devices that require either remote activation or manual detonation with authorization codes. We have those codes from Hayes's office, but we can't reach all locations simultaneously," Martinez objected. "We don't need to," Zora explained, tactical plan forming. "We just need to reach the primary target, Douglas Center, and use their own communication system to broadcast deactivation signals to secondary devices." With renewed purpose despite physical limitations, Zora developed countermeasures against what had appeared insurmountable opposition. The breaking point hadn't destroyed. Her resolve it had transformed it. The abandoned storage unit Martinez secured provided temporary shelter, while Zora's injuries stabilized. The knife wound had been professionally treated, but exhaustion and blood loss took their toll. For the first time since her mission began, Zora's legendary focus wavered. Slumped against concrete walls, she watched her hands trembling not from fear but from physical depletion that even elite training couldn't overcome. "You need rest," Martinez advised, securing their perimeter with makeshift alarms. "Can't save anyone if you collapse." "People will die if I rest," Zora countered, checking news reports on a burner phone. Hayes had escalated his public campaign against her, releasing doctored surveillance footage, showing her attacking security personnel without provocation. Digital experts might eventually prove manipulation, but truth would arrive too late. For bombing victims. Most disturbing was footage of her parents. Professors Williams appeared on screen with FBI agents, reading prepared statements denouncing their daughter's concerning behavior and dangerous delusions. Their eyes told different stories. Subtle signals developed during Zora's childhood, when academic colleagues made racist comments at faculty gatherings. Micro-expressions conveying we're being coerced while verbally disavowing her. Seeing their distress broke something inside Zora that CIA training hadn't addressed. The philosophical question that haunted every undercover operative was the mission, worth destroying your humanity, became suddenly personal rather than theoretical. I've spent my life fighting racism by becoming what they never expected, Zora whispered. A black girl so exceptional they couldn't ignore me, so valuable they had to listen. She examined her bloodied hands. What if that's exactly what they wanted? To make me believe I could change the system by becoming part of it. Martinez, cleaning his service weapon, paused. You questioning the mission or yourself? Both, Zora admitted. Pure patriots are planning mass murder, but they're just extreme version of what already exists. Even if we stop these bombs, the system that created Hayes remains. My own agency might disavow me to protect themselves. The moment of vulnerability revealed what CIA psychological assessments had identified as both Zora's greatest strength and potential weakness. She hadn't surrendered her humanity for the mission. Unlike agents who compartmentalized emotions until they became functional sociopaths, Zora retained capability for empathy that made her simultaneously more effective with human intelligence and more vulnerable to emotional manipulation. The philosophical crisis was interrupted by Martinez's police scanner, picking up emergency dispatch units, redirecting to Chicago Medical Center, where unidentified black male with gunshot wounds had arrived. The description matched Agent Jackson, supposedly killed during the cabin assault. Impossible, Martinez stated. No one could have survived that explosion. Jackson was one of the best tactical specialists in CIA history, Zora countered. Energy, returning with possibility of alliance. If anyone could fake death to evade capture, he would. The decision to investigate carried substantial risk. Hospital security would include both legitimate personnel and corrupted officers placed by Hayes. If Jackson truly survived, he represented crucial ally. If not, the diversion would deplete precious time before detonations. Infiltrating Chicago Medical Center required precision timing. Martinez created distraction at emergency entrance officer, requesting assistance with violent suspect, while Zora accessed through service entrance using maintenance credentials. The hospital's racial dynamics provided unfortunate advantage. Security paid minimal attention to young black maintenance staff. The gunshot victim's location revealed Hayes' awareness of potential survivor armed guards positioned outside intensive care, visitor access restricted, communication channels monitored. Bypassing security required accessing ceiling maintenance routes, navigating between floors through ventilation systems that Zora's smaller frame managed, while Martinez coordinated through earpiece communication. When Zora finally accessed the room through ceiling access, her hope transformed to devastation. The patient wasn't Jackson, but one of Hayes' security personnel injured during the cabin assault. The entire situation was an elaborate trap designed to capture her. Retreat became immediately necessary, but hospital security had been alerted to unauthorized access. As Zora navigated back through maintenance areas, she encountered security teams methodically searching service corridors. Each evasion further depleted her energy reserves until simple movements required conscious effort. The physical breaking point arrived simultaneously with emotional crisis. Cornered in mechanical room with pursuit closing, Zora's body began shutting down combination of injury, exhaustion, and stress, overwhelming even elite training. Her vision narrowed, breathing became labored, cognitive functions impaired. The legendary teenage operative pride of Operation Prodigy, youngest successful CIA field agent, faced limitations of human physiology. In this moment of extremity, memories surfaced not of CIA training, but childhood experiences navigating racial hostility. Her mother's voice during junior science competition, where judges dismissed her revolutionary algorithm. They'll never acknowledge your brilliance, so make it impossible to ignore. Her father after neighborhood police harassed 12-year-old Zora for matching description of suspect. Your intelligence is weapon they fear most. When systems fail, create better ones. The flashback provided clarity beyond tactical considerations. Hayes and pure patriots represented extreme manifestation of systemic racism, but fighting them required more than conventional opposition. Creating better systems sometimes meant working outside existing ones. Martinez located her moments before security teams arrived, providing extraction through service exit while building went into lockdown. Their escape into Chicago streets occurred as Hayes announced emergency security protocols implemented citywide, effectively martial law in neighborhoods containing targets. 8 hours remaining, Zora noted, checking timeline against intelligence gathered. Not enough time to reach Director Emerson or verify which officials remain uncorrupted. The breaking point had arrived, but instead of surrender, it produced clarity. Conventional approaches had failed. Institutional responses were compromised. The only remaining option was what CIA training called asymmetric resolution, changing rules of engagement entirely. We stop playing their game, Zora decided. The bombs are physical devices that require either remote activation or manual detonation with authorization codes. We have those codes from Hayes' office, but we can't reach all locations simultaneously, Martinez objected. We don't need to, Zora explained, tactical plan forming. We just need to reach the primary target Douglas Center and use their own communication system to broadcast deactivation signals to secondary devices. With renewed purpose despite physical limitations, Zora developed countermeasures against what had appeared insurmountable opposition. The breaking point hadn't destroyed her resolve, it had transformed it. The Douglas Center Gala represented perfect cover for Hayes' primary attack. Hundreds of attendees, including community leaders, activists, and supporters, gathered in single location. The senator himself would attend, maintaining his public persona as supporter of urban renewal, while ensuring his personal safety through precisely timed departure before detonation. Zora's infiltration plan leveraged the event's inherent security weaknesses. High-profile gatherings prioritized protecting VIPs while overlooking service personnel, creating access opportunities through carefully crafted disguise. Martinez provided distraction by deploying anonymous tips about security threats at Hayes' other public appearances, forcing redistribution of corrupt officers away from primary target. The transformation required materials procured through Martinez's contacts, formal attire appropriate for catering staff, documentation identifying her as last-minute replacement worker, and service credentials that would withstand superficial inspection. The disguise concealed her injuries while establishing plausible presence within secure perimeter. Service entrance security performed cursory check, confirming workers against master list. Zora's documentation listing employee calling in sick, with replacement authorization, satisfied minimal verification standards. Within minutes, she joined catering team preparing for VIP reception, invisible within hierarchy of event staff deemed unworthy of attention by security personnel focused on protecting prominent attendees. Hayes arrived with predictable theater, photocade displaying importance, security detail communicating power, choreographed entrance timed for maximum visibility. Following him like faithful shadow came Marcus, the former ally whose betrayal still burned in Zora's consciousness. The young man's expression carried newfound arrogance of those granted proximity to power, unaware he represented expendable asset rather than valued protege. From service position, Zora observed Hayes working the room handshakes with community leaders who couldn't recognize predator in their midst, photos with children whose lives he planned to end, speeches about unity delivered by architect of division. The performance demonstrated why Hayes had advanced so far in politics, perfect disguise of malevolence beneath respectability. The operational timeline aligned with intelligence gathered from Hayes' office. 30 minutes for public appearance, followed by urgent call requiring early departure, providing necessary distance before detonation scheduled during keynote address when maximum attendees would be gathered in main hall. Zora identified explosive, device during routine service rotation, sophisticated construction, disguised within audiovisual equipment positioned beneath main stage. The technology confirmed Pure Patriot's connections to military contractors, commercial components, combined with restricted access detonators typically available only to government agencies. The bomb's placement guaranteed maximum casualties while ensuring structural collapse would eliminate evidence of specific targeting. Neutralizing device required access to Hayes's authorization codes, but also direct interface with detonation mechanism impossible while maintaining cover identity. The alternative strategy required getting Hayes alone, extracting final confirmation of conspiracy, then using his own security protocols against the organization. The opportunity arose during Hayes's private meeting with select donors in executive, office-restricted area, where real conversations occurred away from public performance. Zora's service role provided access, but required precise timing to reach Hayes during narrow window between security rotations. Placing surveillance devices throughout venue had been accomplished during service preparations miniaturized technology. Developed for Operation Prodigy, deployed within air vents, light fixtures, and architectural elements, the network created comprehensive monitoring system, allowing Zora to track security movements while identifying optimal approach vector. The senator's temporary headquarters occupied former administrative office, converted for event security. 2. Guards outside electronic access requiring keycard, presumed privacy for conversations deemed too sensitive for public consumption. Hayes, Marcus, and 3 primary financial backers discussed operational details with casualness that confirmed routine nature of their conspiracy. Zora's approach leveraged predictable human behavior. Service staff carrying trays received cursory acknowledgement rather than scrutiny. The keycard access yielded to specialized device concealed within service uniform CIA technology, designed to duplicate electronic signatures without triggering security protocols. The reaction when she entered carrying champagne tray progressed, from irritation at unrequested service to recognition to alarm. Hayes recovered first, professional politician's instincts controlling emotional response. "The delusional girl who thinks she's CIA," he remarked with calculated amusement for his associate's benefit. "Security seems particularly ineffective tonight. I have questions about Pure Patriots," Zora stated calmly, positioning herself strategically near environmental controls. "Particularly your involvement in planning attacks against American civilians." Hayes maintained composed facade while alerting security through subtle gesture toward concealed panic button. "Young lady, your mental health issues are concerning but not my responsibility. Security will ensure you receive appropriate care." Marcus appeared less controlled, hand moving toward concealed weapon while positioning himself between Zora and the senator. "You don't understand anything," he hissed. "This country needs correction before it's too late." The confrontation escalated as Hayes, believing security response imminent, abandoned pretense. "This country was built on natural hierarchy," he explained with academic detachment. "Some communities consistently demonstrate inability to achieve success despite endless opportunities. The attacks will simply accelerate necessary rebalancing of social dynamic." "You're planning mass murder of American citizens," Zora stated for recording purposes, surveillance devices capturing every word. "I'm implementing necessary correction to demographic trajectory," Hayes countered, revealing fundamental ideology. "Driving Pure Patriots movement. History rewards those willing to make difficult decisions, others avoid through misguided sentimentality." As Hayes detailed operation specifics, believing Zora isolated and capture imminent, his confession provided final evidence needed for comprehensive case. The senator explained coordination between attacks, positioning of corrupt officials to control response, and media strategy for blaming radical elements within minority communities for violence he orchestrated. The security response Hayes anticipated never arrived. Martinez's diversionary tactics had succeeded in redirecting teams away from executive office. The revelation visibly unsettled Hayes as minutes passed without intervention, professional composure cracking to reveal genuine concern. "The entire venue is under my surveillance," Zora informed him, revealing operational control. "Every word you've spoken is being recorded and transmitted to multiple secure locations." Hayes's expression transformed from concern to calculating assessment. "Impressive for teenage operative, but ultimately irrelevant. Your transmissions are blocked by security protocols, and my team controls all access points." The office door opening confirmed Hayes's statement as Officer Callahan entered with additional security personnel. His face registered satisfaction at finding Zora apparently cornered. "Perfect timing," Hayes noted. "Our problem requires permanent resolution, officer. Ensure no evidence remains." Callahan's response revealed depths of corruption permeating law enforcement, immediate understanding and acceptance of extrajudicial execution order without question or hesitation. "With pleasure, Senator. Been waiting for this opportunity." The tactical situation deteriorated instantly. Multiple opponents in confined space, limited maneuverability, Zora's injuries compromising physical capabilities normally sufficient for comparable scenarios. Hayes ordered evacuation of all non-security personnel, establishing plausible deniability for upcoming violence. "Make her disappear permanently," Hayes instructed Callahan before departing. "Ensure nothing connects to our organization." With Hayes's departure, Zora appeared completely defeated. No escape routes, overwhelming opposition, physical condition compromised beyond reasonable combat effectiveness. Callahan's expression confirmed his assessment of inevitable outcome as he approached with calculated menace rather than professional restraint. "Should have stayed in your place," he stated, preparing for prolonged retribution rather than efficient. Neutralization. People need to understand natural order. The building security alert interrupted the confrontation alarm systems, activating throughout venue. Emergency protocols engaging without apparent cause. Callahan's communication device activated with security coordinator reporting complete system override by unknown entity. "Impossible," Callahan responded. Attention momentarily diverted from Zora. "Our security is isolated from external networks." The response came not through official channel, but venue's public address system, Handler Chen's voice echoing through executive office speakers. "Officer Callahan, you are surrounded by federal agents. Surrender your weapon and release Agent Williams immediately." The transformation happened with surgical precision. Venue security personnel throughout the building were suddenly replaced by tactical teams wearing CIA identification. Hayes's private security detail found themselves surrounded by federal agents while attempting to escort the senator to evacuation vehicles. The Pure Patriots' carefully constructed operation collapsed within minutes, replaced by containment protocol, executed with methodical efficiency. Director Chen, not just Zora's handler, but Operations Division Chief, entered the executive office. Personally, backed by tactical team that secured Callahan and remaining Pure Patriots personnel. Her professional demeanor revealed nothing of operational satisfaction as she surveyed the situation. "Agent Williams," she acknowledged formally, "your performance exceeded parameters." Confusion replaced tactical assessment in Zora's analysis. "You disappeared from communication channels. All transmissions were compromised." "Precisely as intended," Chen confirmed. "Your mission was twofold: identify Pure Patriots leadership, while simultaneously exposing extent of infiltration within government agencies." The revelation restructured Zora's understanding of entire operation. What appeared as isolation had been calculated evaluation of corruption's depth. Her desperate improvisation had actually occurred within larger operational framework designed to identify every compromised official, corrupted communication channel, and infiltrated security protocol. "You were watching the entire time," Zora realized, professional assessment momentarily overwhelmed by emotional response to perceived abandonment. "Monitoring through secondary channels," Chen confirmed. "Your surveillance devices transmitted to backup systems outside normal agency architecture. We needed Hayes and his organization to believe you were operating without support." Martinez arrived with additional tactical team, his role finally clarified as Chen acknowledged his participation. Captain Martinez has been our liaison with legitimate law enforcement throughout operation. His apparent alliance with you was sanctioned coordination rather than improvised assistance. The tactical teams secured explosive devices throughout venue, using authorization codes Zora had recovered from Hayes' office. Technical specialists confirmed all bombs disabled, while evidence collection units preserved material for upcoming prosecution. The operation transformed from prevention to documentation with methodical efficiency. Chen explained broader context as medical personnel treated Zora's injuries. Operation Shadow wasn't just counter-terrorism mission, it was integrity test. Identifying officials compromised by Pure Patriots organization. Your isolation was necessary to force Hayes' network to activate all resources against you, including sacrificing Agent Jackson, Zora questioned, the agent's apparent death still weighing on her conscience. Jackson's extraction was pre-planned, Chen revealed. His cabin contained specialized bunker designed for precisely this scenario. He's currently debriefing at secure facility. The press conference that followed represented final phase of Operation Public Exposure, ensuring Hayes couldn't leverage political connections to escape consequences. The senator maintained innocence before assembled media, portraying himself as victim of elaborate conspiracy, while legal representatives cited his distinguished service record. These accusations are completely unfounded, Hayes assured reporters, with practiced sincerity. I've dedicated my career to improving conditions for all Americans, regardless of background. The calculated performance continued until Zora approached podium with comprehensive evidence package surveillance recordings, financial documentation, communications records, and Hayes' own confession captured in executive office. The evidence presentation left no uncertainty regarding conspiracy's scope, leadership, or intentions. Senator Hayes personally authorized bombing of multiple community centers, churches, and businesses in predominantly minority neighborhoods, Zora stated formally. The attacks were designed to create pretext for implementing restrictive security measures targeting specific demographic groups. Hayes' expression revealed momentary break in professional facade recognition that carefully constructed political persona couldn't withstand comprehensive evidence. His subsequent attempt to discredit testimony from unstable teenager collapsed when Director Chen confirmed Zora's active CIA status and operation authorization. Captain Martinez provided additional corroboration from law enforcement perspective, detailing corruption within police departments and identification of officers involved with Pure Patriots organization. His testimony established criminal conspiracy extending beyond political motivation into coordinated domestic terrorism network operating within government institutions. The evidence proved irrefutable. Hayes, Callahan, and principal Pure Patriots leadership were taken into custody while investigation expanded to affiliated organizations. Martinez personally supervised release of Zora's parents, ensuring their safety while explaining their daughter's actual activities rather than fabricated narrative created by Hayes' operation. The emotional reunion occurred privately, despite media attempts to document touching moment between teenage operative and academic parents suddenly discovering their daughter's extraordinary activities. Professor Williams simply held their daughter while whispering, "We always knew you'd change the world, just didn't expect it quite this dramatically." CIA headquarters organized formal recognition ceremony, acknowledging Zora's exceptional service, despite her youth. Director Chen presented commendation while explaining Operation Shadow's unprecedented success, identifying domestic terrorist network that had infiltrated multiple government agencies. The ceremony represented apparent vindication of Operation Prodigy program recruiting. Exceptional young people for specialized missions leveraging their unique capabilities. Zora's acceptance speech acknowledged everyone who supported the operation, particularly emphasizing Captain Martinez's courage, opposing corruption within his department, and Agent Jackson's tactical assistance that proved crucial during critical phases. The formal recognition appeared to represent mission completion and personal validation of her capabilities, despite age and background. What remained unspoken during ceremony was Zora's growing uneasiness about broader implications. While Hayes, headed to maximum security detention, and Pure Patriot's leadership faced federal terrorism charges, subtle indications suggested the organization's reach extended further than publicly acknowledged. Certain financial connections remained unexplored. Political figures with suspicious associations continued operations, and military contractors implicated in providing specialized equipment avoided scrutiny through classification restrictions. Most troubling was Callahan's release on administrative bail, despite serious terrorism charges, procedural irregularity suggesting continued influence within judicial system. The officer's expression during release processing contained neither defeat nor concern, but patient calculation, indicating operation setback rather than termination. The official narrative portrayed comprehensive victory against domestic terrorism. Zora's operational instincts suggested something entirely different: successful interruption of immediate threat, while deeper network remained partially intact, adapting rather than dismantling in response to temporary exposure. The celebration at CIA headquarters projected appropriate institutional confidence-decorated conference room, distinguished officials in formal attire, ceremonial recognition of operational success. Director Chen presided over proceedings with professional demeanor appropriate for defeating domestic terrorist conspiracy while identifying corrupted officials throughout government agencies. For Zora, something felt incomplete beneath congratulatory atmosphere. Operational assessment, based on evidence gathered, identified discrepancies between confirmed Pure Patriots membership and intelligence suggesting broader network. Hayes, Callahan, and primary leadership faced charges, but financial infrastructure supporting their activities remained largely untouched. The senator's connections throughout government continued operating without scrutiny, suggesting institutional protection beyond what individual corruption could explain. The honor ceremony organized for Zora's heroism represented perfect conclusion. For official narrative, teenage operative, overcoming overwhelming opposition through exceptional abilities and unwavering courage. Media representatives received carefully curated information, highlighting inspirational aspects, while minimizing systemic implications of government infiltration by racist terrorist network. Director Chen presented formal commendation while officials applauded appropriately. Agent Williams represents finest tradition of service commitment despite extraordinary challenges. Her actions prevented mass casualty event while identifying serious security vulnerabilities within our institutions. The ceremony proceeded with choreographed precision until security alert interrupted proceedings, unauthorized individual bypassing perimeter checkpoints heading towards ceremony location. Tactical teams mobilized instantly, while officials implemented security protocols protecting attending dignitaries. Zora's tactical assessment recognized familiar pattern seconds before security breach materialized. Officer Callahan entering ceremony. Room with unauthorized access badge, weapon concealed beneath jacket. His expression contained none of previous racial contempt, replaced by professional detachment of operator executing mission requirement regardless of personal sentiment. This wasn't about race, Callahan announced, weapon now visible. It was always about power. His statement contradicted everything previously established about Pure Patriots' ideology, suggesting deeper motivation beyond racial hierarchy enforced through terrorism. The subsequent revelation emerged through Callahan's detailed confession. Before assembled officials and witnesses, revelation not of individual corruption, but institutional complicity. Pure Patriots represented not independent organization, but operational division within government security apparatus, designed to create controlled crises justifying expanded surveillance authorities and detention capabilities. Hayes served as public-facing element of operation, conceived at higher institutional levels than publicly acknowledged. "You think this ends with us?" Callahan challenged before tactical teams could neutralize him. The program continues under different classification. Different leadership, same objective. Martinez's reaction demonstrated exceptional situational awareness, positioning himself between Callahan and assembled officials, including Zora. The captain's intervention prevented mass casualties, but resulted in serious injury as Callahan's weapon discharged during security team response. The aftermath transformed ceremonial recognition into active crime scene, with evidence technicians documenting everything while medical personnel treated Martinez's wounds. Callahan's neutralization ended immediate threat, but opened questions regarding his assertions about institutional, rather than individual, conspiracy. Evidence recovered from Callahan confirmed disturbing expansion of identified network documentation, revealing dozens more Pure Patriot cells operating nationwide under various organizational designations. The conspiracy extended beyond Hayes's political operation into multiple government agencies, private security contractors, and military-adjacent organizations pursuing coordinated agenda based on demographic control rather than isolated extremism. Director Chen's assessment acknowledged operational reality that contradicted public narrative of contained threat. We've identified cellular structure designed to survive leadership decapitation. Hayes's organization represents single operational division within broader network, pursuing parallel objectives through different methodologies. The revelation necessitated fundamental reassessment of institutional response. Rather than mission, completion, Operation Shadow had identified initial layer within multi-level conspiracy, requiring expanded investigation with different operational parameters. Chen's proposal reflected strategic adaptation to discovered reality. Agent Williams, I'm establishing specialized task force targeting organizations identified through your investigation. The unit requires leadership, combining technical expertise, operational experience, and personal understanding of targeted communities. The offer represented unprecedented responsibility for Operative Zora's age, but logical extension of her demonstrated capabilities. The task force will operate independently from standard command structure to prevent compromise through established channels. Your performance during Operation Shadow demonstrated necessary qualifications for directing this initiative. Zora's acceptance acknowledged professional responsibility, while recognizing personal motivation extending beyond institutional objectives. Martinez's survival of assassination attempt represented partial victory, but broader threat to vulnerable communities remained active despite Hayes's neutralization. The systemic racism Pure Patriots weaponized existed independently from their specific operation, requiring comprehensive rather than isolated response. The conversation with parents following ceremony reflected personal rather than professional considerations. Professors Williams expressing pride in their daughter's accomplishments while acknowledging concerns about ongoing operational involvement. We always taught you to fight injustice, her father noted. Just didn't anticipate quite this direct approach. Her mother's assessment contained deeper understanding of motivational foundation. You've always seen systems clearly how they're designed, where vulnerabilities exist, how to improve fundamental architecture rather than surface functionality. Zora's response acknowledged parental influence on her operational methodology. You taught me pattern recognition applies to social systems as much as technical ones. Pure Patriots exploited existing fractures rather than creating new divisions. The final scene establishing ongoing narrative occurred weeks later, Zora leading specialized team including multiracial teenage operatives selected for comparable exceptional abilities. The unit represented evolution of Operation Prodigy, from individual placements to coordinated task force leveraging unique capabilities young agents brought to intelligence operations. Their mission briefing outlined investigation targeting racist conspiracy at highest levels of government, not isolated extremists, but institutional structures designed to maintain demographic control through escalating methodology. The operation represented not conventional counterterrorism, but systemic reform requiring unconventional approach. Zora's expression conveyed determination, transcending standard operational motivation, personal commitment to justice, complementing professional excellence. The teenage prodigy who began mission alone now directed coordinated response to conspiracy that nearly succeeded through isolation and division of potential opposition. They believe demographic differences make us weaker, she told her team. During initial briefing, our mission demonstrates precisely why diversity creates operational strength they can't match. The closing image captured Zora's transition from isolated operative to task force director, still extraordinarily young, but now leading rather than operating alone, bringing systemic perspective to institutional challenge while maintaining personal commitment that transcended professional requirements. Her determined expression revealed revolution rather than conclusion, beginning rather than ending of more comprehensive response to deeply embedded conspiracy that Hayes merely represented rather than created. Shadows of Justice reveals profound truths about systemic injustice and individual resilience. Zora's journey teaches us that fighting discrimination requires both institutional reform and personal courage. True change demands looking beyond surface-level solutions to address the foundational systems that enable prejudice to flourish. The story demonstrates how racism often masquerades as security concerns, with powerful figures manipulating fear to maintain control. It reminds us that allies can emerge from unexpected places, and that diversity creates strength rather than weakness. Most importantly, it shows that while individual heroism matters, lasting change requires collective action, building coalitions across differences to dismantle entrenched power structures. The struggle against discrimination isn't a single battle, but an ongoing commitment requiring both tactical skill and moral clarity. Like Zora, we must recognize that the fight for justice doesn't end with exposing a single conspiracy, but continues with rebuilding more equitable systems. What would you do if faced with institutional discrimination like Zora experienced? Comment below with one action you believe can make a difference in fighting racism in your community. If this story resonated with your own experiences or observations, hit that like button to help others find this important message. Subscribe for more stories exploring justice, resilience, and the courage to stand against powerful systems of oppression. Share with someone who needs to understand how seemingly isolated incidents of discrimination often connect to deeper systemic issues. Thank you for joining me on this journey through Zora's extraordinary story. Remember, true change begins when we recognize patterns of injustice and commit to rewriting them together, one brave act at a time.